This is NHL Wraparound Quick Takes and a little bit of discussion about possible expansion in the NHL, Neil. Earlier this week, Commissioner Gary Bettman announced that the league will open a 6-month process to determine whether Austin or Houston will be a better fit to be the league's 33rd team. And of course, in all the times that we have been talking, you've been fine with the league at 24 teams, and now we are sailing almost 10 more than that.
You know, Vic, the problem is that I'm a hockey guy first and a business guy second. And when it comes to the reason I'm involved in this game is because of the competitiveness. It's not because you're making money strictly. And that flies in the face of what Gary Bettman is trying to do for his owners, which is create a great business model. And he has. I mean, he's taken this thing from 21 teams to 32. There's more revenue now than there's ever been. The players get paid more than they've ever been paid. The owners make more money than they've ever made. And they feel that the footprint in the United States can be bigger. And of course, when it's bigger, that brings in more revenue. And when you bring in and make that footprint bigger, you get better TV contracts, you get better money coming in. Now, my problem is I'm not interested in any of that because I'm not an owner. I'm a guy that wants to go win the Stanley Cup, and I want to compete, and I want to be at the top. Well, the more teams you have, the harder it is, the more watered down the talent pool becomes, the less chance to get great players, and the longer it takes to build a team into a contender. So for me, it was great at 24, which was the original 6 times 4. But at anything above 32, will we ever get to the promised land?
As it is right now, with 32 teams, if everything is created equal, and of course it's not, all 32 teams are not equal, but clearly in terms of the pie chart, you have a 3.125 chance of winning the Stanley Cup. And if a 33rd team is added, that goes to just over 3%. So that certainly speaks to your case there about the more teams that are out there, the more difficult it's going to become.
Absolutely. And so as far as a business entity, it's going to be fantastic. I mean, general managers will make more money, coaches will make more money, players will make more money, trainers will make more money, everybody will make more money. But if you're in it to win it, that's going to be tough.
But the big winners, again, are going to be the owners. And let's look at the business component to this in terms of these two particular cities, which would add a second team in Texas, along with the Dallas Stars. Houston is the largest U.S. city without an NHL franchise, about 2.4 million people. It is the number 6 TV market. And Austin is the 5th most populated city in Texas. It is the state capital with about 1 million people. And they're the 34th rated TV market in terms of largesse. The family that is looking to get involved in this is the Friedkin family, and they're looking to make an investment of upwards of $3.5 billion. They got a little bit of money because they own 2 soccer teams in Europe, AS Roma and Everton in the English Premier League. So you've got that in terms of the money. Vegas came in with a $500 million entry fee, and that bumped up to $650 million when Seattle joined the NHL. So who knows what this is going to look like if the Friedkin family are granted a franchise in either of these 2 cities.
And we don't know. And of course, if you remember the way that they went from 6 teams to 12 back in 1967, each team that came in, I remember, I think paid $1 million to get into the NHL, which gave each of the original 6 teams $1 million. They just divided it up that way. And then as expansions moved along, the number that it cost to get into the league was simply, what does each of the existing teams get now to allow more teams in the league? And so that's where they'll come up with that number. I can't do the math on Vegas or Seattle or anybody else to say what that was at the time. But certainly when you're sitting around at that Board of Governors meeting and you're talking about putting another team in the league, and then you're coming up with what the expansion fee will be, the parties in that room are interested in, well, what's going in my pocket by allowing another team, by watering down our chances of winning. What do I get for that?
Well, it's interesting that you bring that point up, because between 1967 and 1974, the NHL grew threefold, because you had the original 6 expansion taking place in 1967, and then 2 teams were added in 70, 72, and 74. But the problem was the entire league at that time was made up almost exclusively of North American players. And even though you had the great Canadian dynasty of the late 70s, followed by the Islanders, followed by the Oilers, yes, I know they didn't win 3 straight, but they did win 4 out of 5. All of these teams had their championships before the curtain truly came down. In the early to mid 70s, the most prominent Swedes out there were Inga Hammarström and Börje Salming, and then Matty Hagman came over from Finland. He played primarily with Boston. You had Vaclav Nedomansky playing with Detroit as a Czech in the late 70s, and then the Stastnys coming over in the early 80s, debuting with the Quebec Nordiques. But it really wasn't until the late 80s, early 90s that this really started to open itself up with Russian-born players coming over. So going back to this discussion about the talent pool, the league was clearly watered down in the early to mid-70s. I mean, the Montreal Canadian team that I saw in the mid to late 70s was the best team I ever saw in relation to the rest of the league. But the league was not very good at that time. So now you fast forward here to 2026, and we're looking to expand. It'll be 33, and we're going to get an even number of teams to 34. We'll probably be at 36 at some point. Now, with not only so many Russians, so many Europeans, and players coming from now all over the world, it's still a concern of mine whether or not the talent pool will be able to sustain that many teams in a league where the sport has never been better in terms of speed and skill.
I'm going to probably surprise you and say I think it will. Yeah, I think it will be able to support that many teams. Now, the league won't be as good as it could be as if you had less teams. Let me make my point by the 4 nations face-off that we saw a year ago at the break was the best hockey we've seen forever. I mean, we all love playoff hockey, and why is that? Because the best are playing the best. And in that 4 nations, it was best versus best, and the hockey was outstanding. If there is no doubt that if you have the whole world contributing to a 24-team league, it's going to be a better league than if they're contributing to a 36-team league, because you're going to have to get other players in there. The reason why the original 12 or the original 18 weren't as good as now is exactly what you've gone through. We weren't getting players from all over the world back then. And we also hadn't developed young people to play hockey in these non-traditional hockey cities. For example, Austin Matthews coming out of
Arizona.
In Arizona. Okay, that's what I was trying to get to. I couldn't come up with the state. But, Austin, who would ever think that a player would come out of Arizona? You get players coming out of Vegas, literally born and bred in Vegas. You get Long Island players. A lot of Long Island players are in the league now. When I was with the Islanders, there was none. There was no players ever came out of Long Island. So they're coming not only from all over the world, but they're also coming from more places in the United States and Canada than they've ever come from in the past. So I do think you'll have enough hockey players to make a good league at 36, but it won't be nearly as good a league if you had all those players trying to be on a 32-team league.
So in wrapping this up, we're going to start by just going to 33 right now, and the two cities that appear to be the front runners to get the next NHL franchise, Austin and Houston. Austin has a history, and they are the Texas Stars AHL affiliate to Dallas. They play in nearby Cedar Park. They will need a new arena if they are the city that is eventually landed on. And Houston will also need a new arena. And their history goes back to the Houston Aeros with Gordie Howe and his sons Mark and Marty in the WHA. And more recently, they were the Minnesota Wild affiliate in the AHL between 2001 and 2013. Do you have a feeling either way which way this might go with all things created as they are?
Well, I don't have a feeling of which way it might go. I can't predict that because I couldn't predict Columbus Blue Jackets being in the league or Nashville Predators being in the league or those smaller places. So Austin may be able to get a franchise simply because that's where the owner wants it to be and he comes up with the money to do it. However, I think if you ask the rest of the league, they would certainly rather try to sell tickets in their own city to Houston at New York Islanders, Houston at Chicago Blackhawks, Houston at someplace, than Austin coming in to play them. Houston, as you said, is a major market. Everybody knows Houston, Texas, everybody in the entire country. And it's a marquee city. So when the day comes that they're in the playoffs and you're not going to hear, oh my goodness, it's Carolina versus Vegas in the final. You know, Houston is a name city that's going to draw people. So I would imagine that's if they're going to put one of these two in, that's who the rest of the league would be cheering for.
Certainly something we're going to be paying close attention to as the 2026-27 season unfolds and perhaps a decision is made sometime during the course of the coming campaign. That'll wrap up Quick Takes. On behalf of Neil, I'm Vic. Remember, our website is NHLWraparound.com, and we're on all podcast platforms, including our newest partner, Buzzer. So check them out as well. Thanks for tuning in.